Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Hand of Fate. It's hard to explain, at least in a succinct fashion. It's not exactly any particular genre, it's a mix of them, but the central theme, as you can probably see, is card play. Now, hang on a minute. I know some of you get a little bit antsy when I do card games. I love card games, but a lot of you don't. This is not a card game, per se. Cards are used as a method of storytelling, and also to determine which encounters, equipment, and monsters you will have to deal with throughout the game. This introduces an element of randomness, and it's a more elegant way of doing procedural generation, I suppose, because the cards are coming from a deck in this strange kind of organic fashion. You're playing a game against this mysterious dealer. You don't really know what his agenda is. He seems to have designed the game and has control over the monsters, but he's surprisingly friendly to you and seems really willing to just be involved in a magical contest. In fact, the game's story is almost non-existent, and it relies entirely on these individual adventures, which involve hunting down a particular boss from his cabinet, defeating said boss, and then you will start a new adventure, but with more cards added to both his deck, which is out to kill you, and your deck, which is out to keep you alive, and will provide you with various beneficial items to use in the game's main component, which is the combat system, which is a third-person brawler. You get the idea? Well, if you don't, I don't blame you, because it's a little bit odd. So let's just play through and show you exactly what's going on. So there's a story mode and an endless mode. In the story mode, you can do a lot of the unlocking, and you'll be fighting your way through various monsters. Endless, you just keep playing until you lose. So, this is the cabinets. Now, these are the monsters that I've defeated. I'm about halfway through the game, as you can see, after about 5 hours or so. And I'm going to be fighting the Queen of Skulls as my next boss. I've also acquired 2 magical items. Now, these items give me bonuses, but they also level up the enemies, so I have to worry about that a little bit. So I've got bonus food and starting gear now. I move with increased speed, but I'm dealing with much stronger bandits, lizardmen, and ratmen, so there's always a downside to it. Alright, we shall pick the Queen of Skulls. Now, each of these bosses has a different set of curses and challenges that it's going to put up against you. These are going to be involved in the deck whether you like it or not. So, in this case, whenever I purchase an item, I'm going to gain a curse, which is going to suck. But, on the flip side, all traders have been persuaded to offer cheaper items in this particular fight. Alright. There's also a bunch of lore that you can read about these creatures if you like. A lot of the lore is actually explained by an excellent narrator, who I will attempt to allow you to hear where possible. The problem is he interjects at the most inopportune times, so it might be a little bit difficult for me to let you hear a lot of it, but I'll try anyway. So, you have the option at the start, which I find intriguing, to build both the encounter deck, which is what you're going to be facing, and the equipment deck, which is what you're going to be drawing from during the game. So these are the cards that I've collected up to this point, and they include various helms, artifacts, trinkets, armor, shields, and so on and so forth. So my deck right now consists of this, which is starting to get pretty nice. Like, they start off with very basic stuff, like a mace, axes, and swords, and a basic shield, but the more you go through the game, the more of these cards you unlock that you can then replace in your deck. So I now have access to being able to both purchase these at vendors and potentially get them as drops. So things like the Scorching Zeal, which is a mighty fire mace, which also has the ability to actually create fire, which creates an aura and burns nearby enemies. There's all sorts of things you can find here. So I'm looking through some of the new stuff that I got in my last run to see maybe if there's anything useful there. And you also have to balance your deck. You've got to be a little bit careful. Like, do you really want to leave out a shield, for instance? Well, I think I probably get good starting gear now, so chances are I don't need a shield in my deck anymore. But maybe I want a better shield. So maybe I want to think about that. And what kind of equipment and consumables do I want to be available throughout this game? I don't know what Fool's Gold is. This is something I just got. When you get a card new, you have no idea what it is. So it's a little bit adventurous. We're going to throw that in there because we don't really know what it is. So that's my deck, and then this is his. He's going to spice this up a bit by adding some more encounters in as he feels is necessary. But a lot of these have good points and bad points. So you can add whatever you like. You can try and make the deck easy, but if you do that, you might miss out on the ability to get very powerful bonuses and items. So you want to watch out for that. So you can vary this up, or you can let the game do it for you. If you don't want to fiddle around with this, there's a recommended deck for each encounter, which keeps things fresh. I like to mess around with this because I like messing around with cards. And what I actually want to try and do, if possible, is replace some of these cards with the ones that have tokens on them. When you defeat challenges with tokens, they will unlock new cards. So if I want to get everything, I want to get rid of some of these old encounters that I've already beaten, like Battle of Brooktop. That can go away. A Winding Trail, maybe throw away the Dead Man's Gorge. And we can add in Noble Trader. We could add in Culling the Ratmen. And perhaps a Wife's Fury. There we go, as I like to call it, the Jenna card. Alright, so the decks are set up. So what happens? Well, this happens, and it's awesome. So watch this. This is really cool. The presentation of this game is one of its biggest strengths. So he's going to deal out all of these cards. He's going to show me some of the nasty things that can happen. He's going to throw some extra stuff in the deck. And then he's going to create a dungeon with the cards. As you can see here, this is my little character. And I am going to move around. And I'm going to encounter whatever this card is. So I have food, which goes down every time I encounter a card of an enemy or anything. I also have health. If my health goes to 0, you lose the adventure. You're dead. You get to start it again, of course, but each of these adventures is like a mini game. Like, it can take anywhere between, like, the shorter ones take about 5 minutes. Some of the longer ones could take upwards of, like, 20. So we're encountering goblins. All right. There we go. One night, you awaken to find your belongings being rifled through by goblins. As soon as they notice you stirring, they run away. They've stolen some of your food and gold. A little bit of a choose-your-own-adventure feel to this, actually. And I'll talk a little bit about that feel in a moment, but we're going to show you the main kind of meat of the game, which is the combat system. And we'll talk a little bit about that and provide some critique. What's nice is the way that they introduce the combat system. They actually play the card, and they play your equipment on top of you as well. So I start with basic gear, an axe, and a shield. There we go. And I'm fighting against these goblins, and I'm going to try and get my gold back because they stole it. Now, every now and again, if you go into a brawling arena, you'll encounter things like traps that you got to watch out for, and of course, there are different enemy types that are determined by the cards. Outside of that, the brawling system is, I would say, Arkham style, in the sense that it relies a little bit on the counter system that Arkham has. You hit the counter button, which is Q, and you'll be able to counter anything that has a green indicator. If it's red, you've got to dodge it by rolling with the spacebar. You have your primary attack. You also have a stun. Oop, we just want to avoid that trap. Thankfully, they can hit the enemies as well. You can stun with your shield, and you then just kind of spam away and increase your combo. Now, there are abilities you can unlock depending on what weapons you've got. You can equip an artifact, which will allow you to activate it to do various things in the match. And you've then got a weapon which potentially might have a magical ability which you can activate as well. But that's basically what the combat system is. It's basic. I feel that the combat system is perhaps the weakest part of the game. It's not awful, it's perfectly functional, but it is by no means exceptional. The problem is that they tried to go for a 3D style Arkham system, and really, the Arkham combat system very much relies on production values. I've said it before, Shadow of Mordor pulled it off because it had great production values. Really good mocap and animation quality. Arkham pulls it off for the same reason. When I see indie games try it, I always think, well, really you're not playing to your strengths if you actually try and use this combat system, because you don't have mocap studios. You probably don't have a huge animation department to actually make this look really good. And as a result, the animation looks a bit stilted. Now, you might say, well, that's an aesthetic thing. Well, that's not actually true, because the quality of the animation directly impacts player feedback. So, if you have poor quality animation, you're going to feel like the combat system isn't that responsive. And the main problem that the animation has is that it's got very poor looping, it's got very poor resets, and you'll often see very jilted resets and kind of skipped frames in the animation that look a little low budget. And well, it kind of is. And it's a bit unfortunate because the rest of the presentation, as you can see, is just lovely. The card art is fantastic. It reminds me of old 80s choose-your-own-adventure and fighting fantasy books. Things like Lone Wolf. Ooh, Frostfang. Yeah, I'll have that. There we go. That is a sword which allows me to shoot a cone of cold out every once in a while, so I will definitely equip that.
Is that what you're going to do?
It is what I'm going to do. Thank you very much. Now stop doubting me and being a pissy pants. Thank you very much. So all of that is great, and the way that the dealer interacts with the cards is fantastic. The way that he deals, if you earn a token, he'll take it out of this little box and float it in front of you. It's all really lovely, but unfortunately that clashes a little bit with the combat system. Thankfully, the battles are fairly short for the most part, and they can get pretty challenging, especially if they throw you in an arena with a bunch of traps and a lot of different enemies with different types. The game starts off pretty easy. You can beat the first few bosses without really breaking a sweat, but it's starting to get a bit harder now that things have upgraded and I have died a few times. It has happened. Alright, what do I want? Well, I think gold, actually. Yeah, we're gonna ask for some gold here, as hopefully I can buy an item later on down the line. That would be nice. So this encounter is actually always a good one. So I tend to keep it in my deck. It always gives me something nice. Let's see what this one is, shall we? Alright, this is nothing by the looks of it. Oh, actually, no, it is the end of the level. Okay, cool, we can do that. Yeah, so let's do that. And now he's going to generate a new level by dealing out some new cards on the table. There we go, just like that. So it really is like a procedurally generated kind of dungeon. But anyway, kind of back to the combat system. As I say, I think the good thing about the combat system is it doesn't outstay its welcome too much. I think it would have been better as a 2D brawler. I'm going to be honest. I think it would have done a better job with that. I don't think the Arkham system works for lower budget titles, but it's functional enough. Like, I'm willing to look past it. And you're gonna ask me, well, why are you willing to look past it? I know you're just a stickler for third-person combat systems. You love your spectacle fighters, your bayonettas, and you're right, I do. The reason I'm willing to look past it is that the way that I describe this game, and I'm stealing this directly from Northern Lion, who really kind of captured my feeling on this, is this game is more than the sum of its parts. Very much so. If you look at the individual elements of this... we could do that. Yeah, that might be good. Yeah, let's buy Fool's Gold. There we go. If you look at the individual elements that make up Hand of Fate, then you could probably, as far as I'm concerned, be forgiven for thinking that it's a lot of fairly basic stuff. The way that they generate the dungeons is simply by putting cards down on a table. They don't have to deal with level design or anything along those lines. And the deck building is reasonably simple as well. And really, what are you doing? You're moving through a dungeon and you're encountering things. And that sounds basic, doesn't it? But the thing is, the presentation and the way that everything is tied together is... It gives me this magical feeling, and it might be nostalgia. I think it actually has quite a bit to do with that. I played a ton of games like Fighting Fantasy and Lone Wolf as a kid, and this game reminds me of that brought to life. And I think the game brings everything to life in such a vivid and just whimsical way. The narrator helps a great deal with that. He is phenomenal. The writing is great, and there's tons of lines. He'll react to stuff that you do. He'll react to you like having the same card in the deck multiple times. He'll say you're trying to cheat the system. He talks about his game. He talks about even cards being overpowered. And he'll comment on everything you do, and there's so much variety that I never get tired of hearing what he has to say.
We play for a token now.
Alright, we will indeed. Now, if I get this token, I'll unlock new cards. So... this is an encounter that I haven't beaten before. In fact, I haven't seen this one before, so we're going to give it a shot. On a dusty, lonely plain, you come across the shattered remains of an old monastery. Searching the building, you meet an old man dressed in dirty robes. Long ago, we of the Brotherhood forged holy weapons to support the war against the infidels. But the infidels were strong, and one day, one of their raiding parties took us by surprise. They destroyed most of our tools and took our supplies, including all the rare metal ore we used to craft our weapons. And so on and so forth. Well, it doesn't look like I, unfortunately, have any ore with me. Now, you can acquire ore and get items that can be then handed in later, so I don't get the token at this point, so he puts it back in his pot. Unfortunate, but I now know that if I want to use the Holy Forge card, I'm also going to need a card that's going to allow me to acquire some ore. So that's a deck building concern that I might want to put later on. And actually having those combos is quite important. And it's an intriguing little aspect. Now, it's not just the presentation of the cards, although that's a lot of it. You know, using the card system is a really elegant way to do procedural generation and make sure everything is unique every time. But it's also a great presentation concern. But it adds a layer of complexity and customization, which, as far as I'm concerned, gives the game a great deal of replayability. And it's cool because you can jump in and do an adventure in like 10 to 20 minutes. And you can feel satisfied because you'll have earned something by the end of it. I can almost guarantee it. Okay, let's see if there's anything worth here. Mercenary contract's pretty good. I wouldn't mind getting that Scorching Zeal. I haven't had a chance to even use this weapon before, so I'm gonna take the Scorching Zeal. And I think I'm fighting against undead, so this is a holy weapon, so this will help. There we go, I'll equip Scorching Zeal. Unfortunately, I get cursed again for buying it, so... yeah, so I'm not going to buy anything more, thank you very much. I already have 3 curses on my person, and that's going to really affect my ability to fight. Thankfully, I'm at full health, so never mind. But yeah, it really is the sum of its parts. It's so lovingly crafted that you get engrossed in it in a real way. Just listening to what the narrator has to say, the feeling that you're playing this game of fate against this guy, who feels like a friend, but is also simultaneously trying to kill you, which is a little bit of a weird relationship we have here. Ah, the Crucible. This is generally an arena fight. We could enter the Crucible, or we can try and get around it in a different way. It's nice that there's a bunch of choices. Most of them are randomly determined by picking cards. Alright, we're going to fight some undead, I think, especially since I have a... I hope I equipped my weapon before I went in. If I didn't, then I'm going to be very sad. We'll give this a try anyway. So this is a little bit of an arena fight here. It's got that one more play feel to it, because the game lasts, the adventures last just long enough. They never really outstay their welcome. Wow, I smashed them with that weapon. Holy crap, that's a good weapon. Well, it is a holy weapon, so it's really good against undead, so I'm going to be exploiting that to the best of my ability, thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely crushed. Yeah, we're going to fight, fight 2 scales or 4. I'll fight 2, thank you very much. That sounds a little bit more sensible. So, you've got these really satisfying little runs. You're always progressing. You're always unlocking new cards. A lot of the cards are kind of hidden behind challenges, so they take quite a lot of effort to unlock, since you have to beat the challenge and get the token in order to actually unlock the cards in the first place. I'm going to renew my fire aura here and burn them. There we go. That should help. So there's plenty to do. If you want to get all of the cards available and then play in endless mode, where of course you'll be able to encounter all sorts of different things, then the game's got that in spades. It might seem a little bit short, considering I've beaten about half the game in 5 hours, but getting all of the cards and then being able to play the endless mode with them, I think is very strong, and that gives it a good deal of replayability. Now, does that mean it's flawless? No, absolutely not. As I said, the combat system is the weakest part of it, and I think there are some things they could do. I mean, it's inherently flawed because it is an Arkham-style combat system on a lower budget, but I don't like the fact that the guy's sword and board pretty much all the time. Like, there's no reason, from what I can tell anyway, unless this happens much later on in the game, not to have a shield, because the shield unlocks the ability to do blocks, and if you don't have a shield, you just don't get any benefit. Like, I'd like to see dual wielding, I'd like to see two-handers and more combat styles. All of the weapons kind of swing the same. Some are a little bit slower than others, and of course some have magical effects, but the combat feels very, very samey. It gets away with it because it doesn't outstay its welcome, it doesn't drag on for too long, and it can at times be challenging, which is nice. There we go, we got a little bit of cash, that's always good. We didn't lose too much health. Alright, and we get out of this area, very nice. This is the sort of game that you can just engross yourself with and have kind of a... You can revisit your childhood. If you were like me and you played a lot of those choose-your-own-adventure books, this game has enough choose-your-own-adventure in it, tossed in with a little bit of roguelite, with a little bit of brawler, some card gaming and deck-building mechanics, to create a really nice, unique experience that is more than the sum of its parts. I've been having a really great time with Hand of Fate up to this point. While traveling through a small town, you're accosted by a furious woman who shouts at you from the door of her homestead. "You there! You look like you can handle yourself. My husband was supposed to be home hours ago, but instead he's with his pals drinking away all our coin. Shall we confront the husband?" Yes, of course. Of course we shall. What does... Oh, he's the Jack of Dust. Okay, that's a boss that I fought earlier. There's 2 of them? Oh, we can join in his drinking game. Should we join his drinking game? Let's give that a shot. Okay, that might have been a mistake, because I could end up having a huge problem with this. But we'll see. Maybe we outdrink him. And we maybe do. We've got a little bit of RNG involved in this game, certainly. There we go. I gain a card, and I gain some cash. Cool.
Here is your token.
And I beat the challenge, which means that I get whatever that encounter's cards were. So that's going to enhance my next playthrough. I think that's maybe the strongest part of it. Every time you play, it's different. And you have control over how different it is. You can let the game determine what you come up against, or you can customize. And you can create combinations that will actually work in your favor. This is particularly important in the harder levels, where you're dealing with some really nasty debuffs that you've got to go across. I don't know if I want to buy anything else. I've got so many curses, but I have so much cash. If I can get something high level, that would be great. Maybe I can buy a blessing. Some of the shops allow you to do that. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. What is that? Consuming Shame. Yeah. I wouldn't mind the Mage Gloves, actually. They're really good. So, let's go back there. This interface is slightly awkward. I feel that they maybe could improve that. I think that the way that they could improve it is by giving it mouse wheel capability, so I could just scroll through these instead of having to click this back button. I will buy the Mage Gloves. Every time you kill something, it sends out magical arrows. So they're really, really nice to have. But yeah, Hand of Fate, to me, it's a flawed game. There's no doubt about that. As I said, the combat system is clearly the weakest part of it. And I think there's... Ooh, we're fighting the boss. Okay. But I can get over that because the presentation is so good. I feel so childlike playing this game, listening to the wonderful narrator and going through these various card-based encounters. And the fact of the matter is that there's depth there, too, in the deck building. And each of these adventures feels different. And I just want to go in for another one. Every time you beat one, it's like, shall we play again? I'm like, yeah, maybe we should play again. And that's a strong feeling, isn't it? That's an absolutely wonderful thing to have happen when you find a game that will allow you to do that. Thankfully, I have a weapon that is a massive counter to these guys, so I got pretty lucky acquiring that. If I hadn't acquired that, that could be a problem. We'll probably best kill that and dodge the blunderbuss. There we go. Or we could probably just beat the snot out of her. That might work. Oop, got poked. Let's whack it out there. Yeah, so I say I can get past the combat system. And I say that I can enjoy this game regardless of that, and I think you probably could as well. They're offering, they're going to be building DLC and putting more content on this as well, so I think this is a game that's very expandable, and I think they could improve the combat system with future updates if they add more variety to it. And then that's going to shore up what is otherwise the game's biggest weakness, but it's dripped in so many other great things. Let's see what cards we got. Because this is... my next playthrough is going to be nice and different now. I now have the Tavern Wager event. There's so many events to play through as well. There's so many different things to experience. I now unlock the Queen of Plague and the Dark Ritual. And one more. Arrow Cutter and the Mortal Whimsy, which appears to be a sword of some description. The game just keeps getting harder. The deck just keeps getting bigger. One more round. Yeah, I think so. Before I go, a little bit of talk about performance, just a wee bit. We're just going to have a look at the settings menu here. Of course, we wouldn't want to really ignore that. For some reason, the resolution is always wrong. I'm not recording at this. I had some issues with this. I changed the resolution, and it didn't actually change the resolution to what I wanted it to, which was a little bit strange. You've got some quality options here, not a huge amount. I have noticed the frame rate can be a little bit low, at least compared to what I would expect from a game of this level of graphical fidelity. In fact, I heard the Xbox One version actually has performance problems with frame rate drops. So you may wish to knock quality down a little bit. It doesn't really affect the way that the game looks too much, but I was a little bit surprised. I think that they need some optimization here because, yes, I was able to play it above 60, which is totally fine, but really, a game of this fidelity on a GTX 980 should be running better than it is, and they also need to fix this options menu so it actually displays the proper resolution. Outside of that, you got your separate audio sliders, subtitles, and some language options. German, Spanish, French, whatever that is. I'm not even going to pretend to know. Sorry, I'm not that multicultural. But there you go. Yeah, just a quick rundown of the options and the slight performance concern here and there. Hand of Fate, ladies and gentlemen. It's available on Steam for $20 or your regional equivalent. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.